We are in hard times for comic book retailers. Local comic book shops are really having to do some very interesting things just to stay alive right now. DC and Marvel aren't helping. Recently at ComicsPRO 2023, which happened this past weekend, DC Comics did their presentation about their marketing strategies to get people interested in comic books and going back to their comic shops. And I must say, Jim Lee and the brain trust of DC Comics have no clue what they're doing. And here to talk to me about that is the proprietor of Fantastic Comics in Berkeley, California, Uel Carter. How you doing, Uel?
I wish I could have been at that ComicsPRO because it sounded like there was some interesting stuff going on. Maybe not so much from DC, though.
Definitely not from DC. So they had a whole presentation, and we're only going to talk about the marketing strategies. That's the part that I thought was really interesting because it doesn't sound like they're actually going to do anything. They're going to be targeting casual fans, hardcore fans, and lapsed fans. We're going to go over them one by one, what they're actually doing. And then I'm going to give my suggestions on what I would do if I were DC Comics and I wanted to start marketing these comic books better and bring people into comic book shops. First, for casual fans, they want to drive discovery through social media, conventions, and movie theaters. Uel, it feels like we've had conventions for a very long time with DC Comics there. They certainly put out social media posts, and they have DC Comics in theaters. Are they going to do anything? Are they going to start doing trailers for comic books in movie theaters?
That would be the thing they would have to do. Or they would have to somehow let us know that this thing that we're watching is a straight lift, or at least a partial lift from something that happened significantly in the comic book. You know, we had this whole James Gunn and initiative that came out, or whatever we're going to call it. And already the Supergirl that he was talking about from Tom King, good or bad, doesn't matter, not in print. Same thing with the Batmans. He's actually mentioning Grant Morrison, and the Batmans with Damians aren't available. Now, those are coming back in print real quick, but even still, it would have been nice to have those available. You know, you hear about these things selling out, but we're really talking about Amazon or Barnes & Noble, places that have those in quantity, and now those aren't available anymore also.
Yeah, they didn't have All-Star Superman. They didn't have The Authority, which people were excited about, or Swamp Thing. Yeah. So they weren't really prepared for that. And they have done some promotion for comic books in movie theaters. I believe when the Batman came out, there is a spot where it tells you 3 different Batman comics that inspired Matt Reeves' movie. So they did try something, but I don't think it was all that effective. If I were in charge, if I were king for a day, and I wanted to drive discovery through casual fans, this is what I would do. I would focus on digital and drive new customers to the direct market. I would offer 60 days free access to DC Universe Infinite with the purchase of HBO Max or Discovery Plus. I would offer free access to classic stories like Dark Knight Returns, All-Star Superman via DC Infinite Universe to get people to actually download the app and get a login to it. You get the login, you get the comics, you can go read them on your tablet for free. I would partner with retailers and offer 25% off comics purchases monthly with proof of the DC Universe Infinite subscription that you have. I would also ensure DC characters in the universe are consistent across mediums. So I would be driving people to the direct market by using digital as your new spinner rack, and I would incentivize people to get on there, get a login, maybe not a subscription at first, and then get them familiar with all these great stories so they would go to their comic shop.
Yeah, retailers are
well, you very slow to change. The program,
yeah. They're very slow to change. They're very hesitant. And anything that they have to do a little extra work for is sometimes not going to happen. But, them, DC, saying, come on over here and then go to a store where you can get this and more is a good thing. At least it would be something, because right now they aren't really talking too much about the stores or anything like that.
No, they're not really generating any awareness of the stores. They're generating awareness, I guess, of the content and maybe the creators or whatnot, but they're not really telling people where to get them. And that's a big problem, Uel, because right now, not every city has a comic book shop anymore. I can't get one in my city. I have to go to a whole nother island. Obviously, I'm not in America, but I hear that from people all across America is they don't have access to comic shops. And if they do, it might be 2 hours away. And those are the people that know where the comic book shop is.
Living far away is obviously a problem, and that's the great thing about digital. That's the thing. That's the promise of digital. I don't have to worry about all the boxes, worldwide access, all the boxes. I don't necessarily have to have physical copies anymore. These are great things. But when you do really, truly love something and you do want to have something on your bookshelf so that you can, people come over to your house, they don't look at your digital, catalog. They look at your bookshelf. They look at your, the records that you have and all the physical stuff that make up your life. And that's the really cool thing about comic books. There is a lot of people that still come into a comic book store and say, I didn't know they make comic books anymore. It baffles me. But of course, I've been in comic books for over 30 years in some way or shape or form. It's obvious to me. I live in this bubble, but if you live 2 hours away, if you have no reason to go to the big city, you're probably not going to really think about comic books too often. And if you are, it's going to be in passing or, nostalgic and something you haven't done for a while. And these people need to know that these things are still available, that these are things you're going to want, and you should come on in and get them.
For hardcore fans, this is what DC wants to do. They want to raise awareness and purchase intent through advertising, promotions, marketing, and displays. I don't think you really need to raise awareness for hardcore fans. Those are the people that are aware. Right. I think you really have to start creating stuff that they're interested in, but there's certainly advertising for their events within comic books. They do promotions, but I think they need to do a little bit more, and just marketing isn't enough for the hardcore fans, in my opinion.
If you have hardcore fans, I would assume they're the last ones to drop off, usually.
Yes.
You can you can give them almost anything, any event, any extra cover, anything, and they're going to probably buy it, or at least, be in the store to see it, to buy it. DC, I remember when they were doing the New 52, and they were actually putting on commercials and stuff like that. They had a situation where if you were a retailer and you did advertising that was specifically involved with the DC, the New 52, they would do some sort of reimbursement. I didn't do that as a news store. I was counting every penny, pinching them. That's at least, working with the retailer. If they were saying hardcore, lapsed hardcore readers,
those are next. Lapsed fans are last.
Yeah, exactly.
A whole other section.
That would be a thing. But as far as advertising to hardcore fans, all you need to do is tell them what's coming up, and they're probably in the store anyway, so you probably don't even need to do that.
So if I'm in charge, if I'm king for the day, and I wanted to talk to hardcore fans, I'm making sure they don't feel like they have a jumping off point. I'm going to increase creative budget for better comic book writers. I'm going to make Jeff Johns or Scott Snyder the face of DC Comics. Get anybody that can actually speak directly to the customers that they can relate to and really hype the product. I'm going to partner with social media influencers and give them exclusive access to promote new titles and events, i.e. YouTubers, people on Instagram, people on Twitter and whatnot, people that actually have the attention of comic book readers. I'm going to create a 3-year plan for the entire DCU and ensure their ongoing titles are always going somewhere important. They're never stagnant. And I'm going to cut the comic book line down to 20 ongoing titles with 12 or less miniseries or events going on within a given month. So the maximum titles they would produce would be 32 titles in a month. That's 8 comic books per week. That's more than enough to satiate the appetite of your most hardcore fans. And there's no jumping off point because everything's important.
Oh my God! Wow!
I'm along with you as far as the short, decreasing the title size. There used to be a time when you had time over the course of the week or the month to go back to the comic store and purchase that book you didn't when you got all the other ones. And, maybe, there's nothing new out, I'll try this. You have a better chance to try things that you wouldn't do it. Make sure that some of those are not Batman.
They're absolutely bleeding their hardcore Batman fans dry.
Well, I have a customer that buys every DC cover. Okay, he doesn't get too many Marvel or anything like that. DC, I feel, is taking advantage of this person. They know there are people out there, and when they do things like Superman #1 covers they're all beautiful. I loved every single one of them, but you should not get every single one of them. And DC is really squeezing that nut, and they're not getting any juice eventually. Definitely decreasing the titles would be a good thing. I would also like to see different characters put in these books. I always bring up Firestorm. I like Firestorm fine, but get a Blue Beetle or something going on. Get a Booster Gold book. Something that isn't
good
just
creators.
Batman.
That's the big problem.
Good
your
creators
hardcore
is
fans is they don't believe that they're going to get a good story every time anymore.
Well, yeah, since we are talking about hardcore fans, you do want to let them know that their time, their efforts spent reading your comic books is going to matter. You you got all these events or you're waiting for the next event. Why am I reading these comics leading up to it? It just doesn't ever really seem like it's paying off like it used to.
Now, the last fans that they wanted to talk to were lapsed fans. To recapture these fans, they want to publish events. Specifically, they mentioned Dawn of DCU. Now, there was a guy's head in front of the picture, so there might have been stuff underneath it. But the only thing I saw was publishing events. I think publishing too many events, I think that's why people left, because there was nothing left to invest in anymore because events weren't important.
Especially at DC, you know, they use the same writer for all the 3 different events, Joshua Williamson. These are the most recent big events. There's the promise that there is going to be something important that happens, and then immediately after that happens, something else is going on, causing me to forget what just occurred. Yeah, event fatigue is a real thing. I don't know, though, if people are lapsed just necessarily because of events or because
I'm just saying that's part of it, and that's
events,
not going to bring them back.
Yeah, I don't think
Dawn
so
of DCU is not bringing a lapsed fan back to DC Comics. Maybe Superman #1, because it was actually kind of good. Maybe a Superman fan comes back once they dropped off from Brian Michael Bendis.
Right.
But you're not talking to every single DC fan with that.
No,
and
that's
not
true.
all of Dawn of DCU's been good so far.
It doesn't feel like Rebirth. It doesn't feel like New 52. It just feels like they're actually looking at different types of books that they could put out, and I'm actually excited about that aspect of it. You know, it's not just a new Batman book. You know, we're going to get some of the other stuff that's coming on. Doom Patrol, you know, that's one. I'm not sure if necessarily lapsed fans are going to be coming back for a thing like Doom Patrol, but it is nice to see that there will be something different from DC on the shelf. But what do you think you should do?
This is what I would do if I were king for a day. I would do a multi-year effort to regain the trust of DC fans who lost confidence in the publisher. Focus on the best versions of the DC Comics heroes, period. No more alterations. The best versions of the characters are going to be in the comic book. 2 events or less per year. Nothing more than that. We're going to do crossover stories with the best characters defeating villains that actually matter. We're going to be crossing over Flash and Green Lantern, Batman, and Blue Beetle, stuff like that. We're going to do cool crossovers, but they're not going to be events. They're going to be 2 or 3 issues max. We're going to apologize for abandoning DC Rebirth and retcon out everything that's happened since Brian Michael Bendis arrived at DC Comics and remove the most egregious creators like Tom King, Tom Taylor, Megan Fitzmartin, Mark Russell, T. Franklin, and others. And we're going to let people know we're actually serious about the characters, the universe.
Those creators aren't always that great. There are some sales that are associated with some of them, and you kind of can't fault that.
I don't think it's worth the damage. Like, the sales of Heroes in Crisis aren't worth the damage of what Tom King did to the DC universe and the fact that no one trusts anyone to write Wally West ever again.
But we do have the good Jerry May Adams stuff that's going on in Flash
and
now.
It's not selling.
That might be specifically because of Heroes in Crisis, or just kind of like the lackadaisical attitude of DC Comics right now to just put out all the stuff that might make some money but isn't necessarily good for the company. I agree with you. Like things like Heroes in Crisis do damage the goodwill between the company and the customer and the store. Actually, also, I don't really want to buy a whole lot of Lazarus Planets for the shelves, especially if it's not returnable. I mean, there's so many reasons to be lapsed. Not putting forth a good story, a good writer, good artist team. DC almost always has a really good looking book. That's the one.
Never
thing
said
you can say
anything
about them.
to change the artists.
Yeah, I mean, like there is quality in a DC comic book, and even with the increased price, those cardstock covers, you can shoot a bullet. It'll stop a bullet. It also costs a lot of money. I don't know about retcon. That's the only thing I would
remove it all. None of it was worth it.
People, when you hear
not
retcon,
even
a lot of times,
Batman Superman World's Finest was worth it. Just forget it ever happened. Screw it.
Forget it ever happened. Yeah. Well, you need a really good, strong directorial, editorial effort. You have to have a really good plan in place. I just don't think that anybody that's working at DC right now is really, I don't know, is it committed, the word I want to use? It's just maybe not talented enough. Maybe they just don't know what they want to do. Maybe it's because of, the company above them just saying, do all this stuff. I have no idea, but it definitely feels that there is a lack of leadership and they don't know where they're going.
They need a Jeff Johns or a Peter J. Tomasi to come in in and be that creative director, because Jim Lee and whoever else is there, they just aren't doing it. They're not good enough right now. And they need somebody to sit over their shoulders and get them that long-term plan and say, this is where our characters are going. We're going to make these stories matter.
For good and bad. I think DC, when they let go of Didio, that was probably the thing that sent them in the spiral the way they're going. I don't love Didio. I don't love a lot of everything that he did, but at least he was the person that seemed like he was really
a front
running
man.
Things. Yeah.
People knew who they had to talk to and who was responsible for the decision.
And
if he wasn't, he would take responsibility.
Exactly. I was going to say, he was okay to you got shit to throw at him. He'll take it.
If you've been following the Comics Beats Tilting at Windmills newsletter from Brian Hibbs, he's been lamenting the death of Floppy Comics. I did bring on another retailer named John Leone from the 616 Comic Book, and he doesn't agree exactly with Brian Hibbs that Floppy Comics are dead. He says it's just different and you have to attack the market differently. Really check this out, because the comic book industry is absolutely changing before our very eyes. If you don't see the video here, there's also a link in the video description.